God of War came out in the mid-2000s and rocked the end of the PS2's life. It was such a good action game that many imitators would show up and try to copy its combat, use of quick-time events, and epic set pieces. Amongst them were such game franchises as Castlevania and Splatterhouse. But there was no game that came closer to being a straight-up rip-off of God of War than the subject of today's video, Dante's Inferno for the PS3 and Xbox 360.
Why, hey there, Space Cadets! Today's episode of The Evil Fungi is an extra special episode because today's episode is filled with all kinds of violence, torture, pain, dismemberment, monsters, Catholic guilt, and full frontal satanic nudity. And if me talking about Satan's gargantuan dong does not get you to watch all of this video and subscribe, well, then there is just no pleasing you.
Dante's Inferno is part one of the three-part epic poem, The Divine Comedy, as written by the 14th century Italian poet Dante Alighieri, and I'm sure I'm butchering that name, and you know what? I'm not sorry. The poem was completed in the year 1320. Story-wise, The Divine Comedy follows Dante through hell, purgatory, and finally into paradise. Dante, lost in sin and unable to find his way to salvation, is led by the spirit of the Roman poet Virgil, at the behest of Dante's love Beatrice, to show him, Dante, a path to heaven. The story itself is an allegory for man's turn away from sin and the journey of the soul towards God, or at least that's what Wikipedia tells me. The first part of the Divine Comedy is called the Inferno. This part is sort of the Curly Howard of the three parts. It's the most well-known and beloved of the entire poem series. And that's if you can call a book about sex, violence, and torture beloved. The Inferno depicts Dante's journey through hell, where he experiences all the torments that hell has to offer sinners. More often than not, these torments are forms of poetic justice. Murderers are boiled in the blood of river flag. Murderers are boiled in the blood of the river flag. I cannot pronounce this word. Flatterers are submerged in excrement. The greedy push around impossibly heavy sacks of gold, and so on and so forth. Hell is depicted as 9 concentric circles inside the earth. It's sort of like a crater that was made when Satan fell to earth from heaven. Each circle of this crater houses souls guilty of different kinds of sin and specializing in torment for those particular sins. Along Dante's journey through hell, he meets demons, monsters, historical figures, and many figures from Greek and Roman mythology. Geryon, Cleopatra, Pontius Pilate, Electra, and Cerberus, just to name a few of the mythological and real things he comes across. The book's depiction of the afterlife would more or less become Western civilization's take on what happens after you die, and should you be a naughty person. The poem would stand the test of time, and in our present day, the Divine Comedy and the Inferno would influence many different art forms and artists. You can find influences in The House That Jack Built by Lars von Trier, Clerks by Kevin Smith, the Cartoon Network show Over the Garden Wall, Devil May Cry by Capcom, and many, many more such artistic endeavors. It's like the damn Pulp Fiction of poems, really. Everybody's trying to imitate it or takes ideas from it.
Now, Dante's Divine Comedy is considered one of the greatest works of world literature. And, let's put that on a timeline, Space Cadets, ever. Now, what do you think, Space Cadets, could potentially be added to this excessively amazing work of literature that could potentially make it better? If you said violence and boobies, you'd be right.
So at some point in the late 2000s, the team over at Visceral Games, the people who made the Dead Space series, decided that doing a video game adaptation of Dante's Inferno would be a great idea and set about producing an action game with the 7-century-old epic poem being the story thread that would hold the whole game together. EA would publish the game in February 2010, and by Jove, this release was a pretty big deal for the company. They had a large number of plans for the game, and there was a plethora, absolute plethora, of cross-media promotional items for hungry little gamers to get their grubby little hands on. There was an animated movie by Film Roman, the company that did the Dead Space Downfall movie. There was a 6-part comic book series based on the game published by Wildstorm, and Universal Studios at one point was developing a live-action movie adaptation of the game that Fede Alvarez, the director of Don't Breathe, would direct. Man, it just seems like everyone and their mother wanted a piece of this game. It is so strange. It was almost as if Dante's adventure through hell would be bigger than the Beatles. But sadly, the only thing that's bigger than the Beatles is your mom's butt. The game would receive lukewarm reviews and average sales at best, drawing many comparisons to God of War, both favorably and unfavorably. The planned sequel would be cancelled, and in 2018, Visceral Games would be closed down. But they wouldn't close down because Dante's Inferno did bad, mind you. They were closed because EA is a monster that only exists to eat the flesh of others.
But Kirby, you ask, how's the game? How does it play? Is it as good as the great world literature that it is based upon? Well, you're in luck, Space Cadets, because I have absolutely no life whatsoever, and I can spend a whole lot of time telling you all about it.
Now, does this story adequately utilize this masterful work of literature that stood the test of time and deals with deep, complex themes that include, but are not limited to, such things as man and his relationship to God, love, sin, betrayal, greed, lust, hatred, or salvation?
The short answer is no. The pun answer is hell no.
Dante's Inferno, the video game, is a loose adaptation of the epic poem in question. A very loose adaptation. It's as loose as one of my bowel movements after I eat a whole bag of Tyson's spicy chicken tenders. And when I say spicy chicken tenders by Tyson, I mean like the old ones, when they had like the really good recipe and the spicy chicken tenders were like delightful. Not this new shit where they're like trying to put Frank's Red Hot sauce on it. It's not good. Anyways, what I'm saying is that Dante's Inferno is a bad adaptation. In the video game Dante's Inferno, you play not as Dante the poet in the red robes, but Dante the backflipping crusader. Yeah, Dante has been transformed into a crusader fighting in the Holy Land. A crusader that, for some reason, sews a cross into his chest at the start of this game.
Okay.
The game both uses poem Dante's Inferno and references to the Crusades. Does the game adequately use the Crusades to add depth to the game or meaning to the events therein? Nope, not at all. Really, to cut to the chase, Dante's Inferno, the video game, is really just God of War Jesus Christ edition. And it's here that I need to make a side note. When this game came out, it garnered many comparisons to the game God of War. And that's mainly because it's a straight up ripoff of the game God of War. A fairly good game ripoff of God of War, but a ripoff nonetheless. This both helps and hurts the game in many ways. I'll explain why as we go along, just be prepared. I'm going to be doing a lot of comparing Dante's Inferno to God of War. The game begins with Dante backflipping around in the Holy Land, murdering the crap out of people until he himself gets stabbed in the back. Death comes to take him, but Dante kicks Death's ass, leaving Death begging for his life. Dante takes Death's scythe, which becomes your main weapon in the game. Dante returns home to Italy, only to find that his father and fiancée Beatrice have been murdered. Some ghost shit happens, demons show up, you do some backflips, and then make your way to the church where you find Beatrice and the devil. The devil takes her to hell, and Dante takes off after them to save her. Why does Satan take her? Later in the game, you find out that Dante and Beatrice bumped uglies out of wedlock, but that's not why Beatrice went to hell. You see, after they played hide the salami, Dante then played hide the salami with another woman in the Holy Land.
That must be why they call it the Holy Land.
And because Dante was in flagrante delicto with another woman, he broke his vow to Beatrice, and this leads her to going to hell with Satan.
I guess that's how sin works.
The church falls away, and Dante's descent into hell starts proper. Now, to put it simply, the story in this game is what would happen if you took the original poem and then filtered it through a 14-year-old boy. The main thrust of the narrative isn't a pensive journey through hell in an attempt to save Dante's soul, but rather it's to save his girlfriend from being boned by the devil. There's so much rich mythology and history to draw from in Dante Alighieri's original work, but the development team barely touches the surface of it, and what it does touch upon is treated with all the maturity of a teenager. But that's not really where my main criticism with the game's storyline lies. I mean, if they want to simplify it in terms of what a 12-year-old can understand, I'm fine with that. We're not fancy aboard this ship here called the Evil Fun Guy, you know what I'm saying? A game is a game, and although story can be a defining feature, it certainly doesn't have to be the most important feature of the game. No, my main criticism with the game's story is really the characters. Satan shows up to taunt Dante and nail Beatrice every now and again. Beatrice in the poem is an agent of God trying to save Dante and bring him onto a path of salvation, whereas in the video game, she's some Brosif's girlfriend circa 2008. Later in the game, she eats 4 pomegranate seeds for some reason. I understand that this is a reference to the story of Persephone, but why? After this, she's Satan's wife and changes personalities to a jealous bitch circa 2008. The real problem with the game's characters is actually Dante himself. He doesn't work in his own game. He is completely out of place. Like I said, the developers borrowed heavily from God of War, and one of the things they borrowed was the excessive violence and gore. During gameplay, Dante will rip demons in two, impale bosses in the face, rip heads off, and characters like Death and Satan will beg him for their lives. All of this clashes with the character of Dante as presented in the game. You see, in God of War, Kratos was the ghost of Sparta. He had a reputation and people feared him. He was a hyper-angry murder monster whose goals were to kill, get revenge, kill, and bang chicks. And kill. Emphasis on the kill. So when he, say, stomped on somebody's face, or pulled out a Cyclops' eye, or disemboweled a Minotaur, it made sense. It was his character. He's the type of guy bad guys beg not to kill them. You understood it. It was conveyed through every snarled growl that came out of Kratos' face. This was a guy you didn't fuck with. The same can't be said for Dante. Dante during the game is presented as sort of sad and remorseful for his past sins. He has deep regret for the actions he took that sent Beatrice to hell. This is very much in contrast to the horribly vicious acts of egregious violence he commits in the game. Like, he wants to rescue his girlfriend and feels really bad that what he did caused her to be taken to hell. That just doesn't sound like the type of guy who would impale somebody in the face. It causes this weird mismatch in tone when playing the game that I don't really particularly care for. Additionally, you get these animated cutscenes in the game that show the various sins that Dante committed during his time in the Crusades. Dante in these cutscenes is violent, gluttonous, lustful, and all of those other sins in the world. He's like an entirely different person than the one portrayed during gameplay, and it's very, very jarring, and I don't like it.
Whew, that was quite a bit of analysis, wasn't it there, Space Cadets? Why don't we do this? Why don't we step away from the game for just a moment and watch something a little more lighthearted, something that could potentially make us guffaw so that we can shake off some of the tension we've had from all of this horrible thinking we've been doing, okay? So here it is. Enjoy this humorous clip.
The gameplay in Dante's Inferno is straight up God of War's gameplay with one small addition. You get combat, platforming, puzzles, and a mini game unique to Dante's Inferno. It's a grocery list of shit you've already seen, only done better elsewhere. But not better by much. You may be surprised to hear this, but Visceral Games actually made some pretty sound gameplay here. No joke, Space Cadets. Visceral Games did a good job copying God of War's gameplay. Now, the gameplay does sort of drag towards the end of the game, but that might be chalked up to the dismal level design that developers force on you towards the end. Combat consists of a light attack that's fast but weak, a heavy attack that's strong but slow, a grab button, a jump button, you can block, you can parry stuff by blocking at the right time. You can dodge things. When enemies are at a low enough health, you can start up a quick time event and push some buttons to watch a special murder animation. And you have this attack where you shoot crucifixes made of light. Why? Why do you shoot crucifixions made of light? Because
I kick ass for the Lord.
During the game, you can collect souls after killing enemies to upgrade a skill tree that you have in your menu. These souls are represented by blue orbs and red orbs. Blue orbs can upgrade your holy abilities, whereas collecting red orbs will upgrade your unholy abilities. I never really found a use for upgrading anything in the game until I got stuck. Like for instance, when I was fighting Dante's father, yeah, he's in hell too, but Dante isn't really concerned about his well-being as much as he is for Beatrice's. But anyway, I got stuck on this guy because he kept killing me with this ground energy move that he has.
Boy, Space Cadets, when I eventually get to hell, I hope I get special powers just like that.
To beat this guy, I unlocked an aerial jab attack so I could hit him from a distance and dodge his attack at the same time. For most of the game, I basically just stuck to the primary combo attack. Eventually, I started to get bored with this strategy and unlocked other moves just so I could kill enemies with greater expediency and get through the game faster. Other than efficiency, I found little to no reason to upgrade anything. None of the moves seemed important, necessary, or even really fun, except for this spin attack where Dante just spins the scythe around. This is the best crowd control attack, and it can push all the mofos back should you find yourself stuck in a corner. You predominantly get orbs after killing enemies, but depending on how you kill enemies will determine what orbs you get and how many. There's this function in the game where after you do that quick time event stuff with bad guys, you can choose to either punish them or absolve them. Punishment means you're going to violently kill them, giving you red orbs. Absolve means that you absolve them of their sins by bashing them in the face with an illuminated crucifix. And I have to say, if Christianity were actually like this, you'd probably see way more people trying to be priests and shit. I mean, really. Dismembering demons and beating them in the face with your righteous Jesus powers? Why would anyone want to be a part of any other religion when you can backflip and slaughter your way to salvation? Sometimes I would be at a section of the game where I was really low on health and would keep dying. If I reloaded or continued, I'd just start the game with the same level of health and therefore just keep dying. The game doesn't refill your health after a continue, and it's incredibly stingy with giving you health, which you gain by collecting green orbs. To get around the problem of being starved of health, I would unlock health upgrades on the skill tree to replenish my health bar. It sucked. I didn't like having to do that. The game should give you more health.
Okay, Space Cadets, hang in there. I know that this is a lot of review and it's a lot of talking, and although we might be enjoying it, it is a lot of dry stuff. But just hang in there, okay? Dick jokes are coming, I promise.
You have magical attacks in the game, which draw power from your mana pool. The mana pool can be refilled by collecting purple orbs. I only ever use the ice magic attack, because it's a lunge attack, and sometimes you just need to get right up in a mofo's face double quick, you know what I'm saying? So that was the only magic attack that I really used. But other than that, I didn't really use magic. Sitting here writing this now, I really couldn't tell you what the other magic attacks are or do. That's how inconsequential they were to my playthrough. Now there's a lot of this game that's taken straight from God of War. You played God of War, right? It's that game that's full of violence and yabos. And if you haven't played God of War, what's wrong with you? It's full of violence and yabos. There are so many things ripped straight from God of War. To get health, you have to destroy fountains, you climb on ropes, you get these Judas coin things that upgrade your magic, these cross collectibles that upgrade your health, just like the Pegasus feathers and Cyclops eyes in God of War. You can ride larger enemies and use them to kill smaller enemies. You have those puzzles where you turn a crank or push a lever and then have to get through a door really quick or something really quick. There's some puzzles where you have to push boxes around, and you can even charge up a kick to slide them across the floor faster. So much in this game is straight up from God of War. It all works well together, don't get me wrong. It's just, if you've played God of War, you've experienced all this stuff before. The combat itself is fun. The developers drop you into some nice action set pieces where you might be fighting on top of a platform above molten gold, or riding a giant monster who's climbing quickly up a crumbling wall. Or maybe you're running through a collapsing cavern and have to jump across falling platforms. The game keeps things fresh for the most part by mixing up the situations you're in. But there are some aspects of the game not taken from God of War. One instance includes the parts of the game where you have to rappel down walls to the next circle of hell. These are usually short platforming sections where you have to swing, fight, and solve puzzles to get to the bottom. Going into Gluttony, you have to avoid fire buttholes. Yep, right there. Do you see that? That is a fire butthole. Only in video games, ladies and gentlemen. When doing these repelling sections, you will eventually have to break these giant chains, which will then be followed by a sinister laugh.
Remember that, Space Cadets, because I am going to bring this all up at the end.
Occasionally, you'll come across a character suffering in hell that was actually mentioned in the Divine Comedy, like the poem. When you encounter them, you get a little text blurb about why they're in hell. Then you get to choose whether to punish them or absolve them. Punish them, and you kill them and take some red orb. Choose to absolve them, and a mini game starts.
And so what happens there, Space Cadets, is that these pink orbs, they float down, and then they go towards the center of the cross, and then they cross the button prompts, like the triangle or the square or the circle. You push those buttons, and it captures these orbs, and that's capturing the sins. And within the context of the story, how that works is when you capture the sins, it absolves. You know what? Who cares? It's a stupid game. Fucking who cares?
Where the game succeeds greatly and also fails greatly is in the use of source material, enemies, boss fights, and level design. Each one of these categories has major home runs in them, but also many strikes. Enemy designs are monstrous and inventive. Each level of hell has their own themed monsters for you to eviscerate. In Gluttony, you have these large fat monsters that have multiple mouths and mouths for hands, and they vomit and shit for attacks. It's really very imaginative. In Greed, you have these two-headed monsters that drop coins everywhere when they attack or you hit them. Lust has these ladies with long tentacles that come out of a suggestive opening. And in Limbo, you get undead babies to kill. Yes, undead babies.
You know, it really is weird that there's a video game out there where you get to kill dead babies. Kind of reminds me of all those dead baby jokes that were like floating around in the mid-2000s. You know, jokes like, what's red and black and blue and can be stapled to 12 different trees? A dead baby cut into pieces. Or another joke was, what's the difference between a pile of dead babies and a pile of bowling balls? You can't move a pile of bowling balls with a pitchfork. You know, it reminds me of jokes like that. Hey, Space Cadets, you know who would really enjoy those jokes? Mr. Crinkle. Why don't we go tell him a few and see what he thinks? All right, cool, like dead babies, yeah.
Who's there? Who's there? Who's there? Better not be Mormons. Told you guys that I'm not in the market for a new god right now.
Now, Space Cadets, not everyone aboard the USS Framing Device happens to be a human being or a robot. Some of the crew members happen to be aliens, and many of these aliens, like Mr. Crinkle here, happen to be fuck ugly. But it's up to us, it's our responsibility, Space Cadets, to be tolerant of other species, no matter how freakishly hideous they might be. Why, hey there, Mr. Crinkle. How are you today?
I'm doing horrible, just horrible.
Oh dear, what's wrong?
I picked up these two chicks at a bar last weekend, and we went back to my hotel room, and as it turned out, they were Galarian mind-suckers in disguise. They latched onto my back and feasted on my spinal fluid for days. This caused me to have horrible hallucinations. My psyche was turned inside out. I saw and felt nightmarish, hellish things. I was tortured for days on the edge of sanity. My loved ones were killed before me again and again. My body dismembered and reassembled only to be dismembered again and again. The only food I ate was fire. Insects feasted on my eyes. My tongue was nailed to my forehead. I wandered around a dank industrial building, dragging my intestines behind me, trying desperately to get away, only to end up being eviscerated atom by atom, again and again. I woke up yesterday in a puddle of my own vomit and feces. It's going to take years of therapy and millions of gallons of alcohol for me to eventually feel anything resembling normal again. I am no longer a person, but a mere shell of my former self.
Neat! You want to hear some dead baby jokes?
No.
What's the difference between a Porsche and a pile of dead babies? A Porsche isn't sitting in my garage. How do you put a baby in a blender? Feet first, so you can see all the funny faces it makes. How do you get a baby out of a blender? With corn chips. Fuck you.
There had actually been a bit of controversy surrounding these characters. If you kill enough of these baby enemies, you get a trophy called Bad Nanny. This pissed off the International Association of Nannies. They stated it was offensive to nannies and encouraged real-world violence. They demanded that the ESRB censor the game, but the ESRB was like, we're a ratings board, we don't censor things. So the Bad Nanny trophy was left in the game, and Visceral Games was like, fuck you nannies and fuck babies too. Some of the boss fights are very memorable, such as the fight with King Minos, the judge of hell that decides which level of hell new souls get sent to. The most memorable boss fight of all of this is with Cerberus, I have to say. Visceral Games completely reimagined Cerberus as this giant worm-mouthed creature that comes out of a giant fat person. It comes out of a giant fat person. You can even see it as you are climbing down the walls into Gluttony. Just look at this. It's awesome. It's amazing. I love this design. The fight is also the coolest fight in the game. In the end, you do quick time the boss to death, which is a little anticlimactic, but the overall experience is worthwhile. Level designs are pretty good too. The ferryman Sharon has been turned into a giant ship, and you fight on his back and then rip his head off. You ride across the river Styx on the demon I can't pronounce it. You ride across the river Styx on the demon Flagerflong's head, and then you get to control him as you enter the city of Dis, which is pretty cool. You destroy the city like a giant demonic Godzilla. Gluttony is a place where people suffer in pools of poop. Everything is flesh and intestines and teeth. Pretty cool and very gross. I like it a lot. The Tower of Lust level has a giant Cleopatra climbing up the side of it, taunting you the whole time. Now, I have to censor Cleopatra here in this video, but I do have to mention this because it's so damn weird. So, Cleopatra, right? She's topless, and you can see her nipplets aren't actually nipples. Her nipples are like open holes that have tongues coming out of them, and during the game those dead babies that you fight earlier fall out and she grabs them and throws them at you. Let me repeat that. She has tongues for nipples and dead babies fall out of the mouth hole nipple tongue things, and she grabs them and then she throws them at you. It's really weird.
And now here is my YouTube friendly interpretation of Cleopatra from the game Dante's Inferno.
Just many of the simple aesthetic choices the developers have made makes you feel like you're in hell. Dante never climbs down ladders. Instead, he climbs down large stacks of people impaled on poles. The walls Dante can climb on are represented by moving textures that make it appear as if many people are imprisoned beyond them. Torture and pain are decorative. You'll often be passing through an environment and see people falling out of holes in the background, or the path you're on will be lined with people impaled on spikes. Screams are constantly included in the ambient noises of some levels. It's really cool, and I have to say that this is very interesting to look at. I mean, this is a hell with a lot of style. But unfortunately, the best parts of the game are mostly at the beginning of the game. All these positives I've stated before eventually give way to bad design and laziness. However, I'm not sure if this is the fault of the developer or if a lack of time and money got in the way. After all, EA was the publisher, and EA could have done what EA always does and destroy this game with overmanagement and lack of support. About stage 4 greed, the game starts to fall apart. You can see it here as the game starts using enemies from different circles of hell in this level. It seems odd that the fat mouth demons or the lust girls would show up in greed. Although I really enjoy the enemy designs, there are really too few interesting ones, and you often fight the same monsters over and over again. There are generic demons that you end up fighting in the game over and over and over. The levels and bosses also fall into dullness. Bosses at the beginning of the game are huge and memorable, but towards the end of the game, they are small and pretty easy to get through. At one point, you're fighting the guy who would become Dante's brother-in-law if he were to have married Beatrice. It's an easy generic fight, and his character design is... Wait a minute. What is that? Look. The The levels get shorter and don't have their own unique enemy types, which is a shame because Dante's Inferno, the poem, has many creatures and demons that could have been bosses or enemies in this game. The demon Malakota, who secures passage for Dante and Virgil through part of the eighth circle, doesn't make an appearance at all. He could have been a great boss. Harpies don't show up in the game. The Minotaur is relegated to a giant stone environmental object you climb on, as are the centaurs who patrol the Blood River The river Phlegethron, which is patrolled by centaurs, is a boiling river of blood that the violent are submerged in. This area of hell is only explored briefly and resembles the river from the poem only slightly. It seems like a missed opportunity for the game not to spend more time here. Moreover, Gurion, the dragon, lion, bat, man thing, whatever, is also relegated to a statue at the end of the game. For every cool monster or set piece, there's a repetitive generic fight with a generic looking demon you fought 100 times, and many of the levels eventually just become long, uninteresting slogs through very samey looking caverns and tunnels. Finally, the game just gives up in the eighth circle of hell. In the poem, this circle houses those who are sinful for the act of fraud. There are 10 inner circles in the eighth circle of hell. This place has some interesting imagery, like flatterers being submerged in excrement, or sorcerers wandering around with their heads backwards, thieves being tortured by snakes, people being whipped by demons. All very cool stuff that would have made for interesting levels. Possibly the best level in the game. Unfortunately, this is where the game dies. I mean, it dies a horrible death right here. The eighth circle of hell in the game is reduced to 10 floating platforms where you have to compete in gameplay challenges to progress. Things like kill 10 enemies in the air before time runs out, or defeat 50 enemies with a single combo. It's dreadfully unimpressive and ends any and all enjoyment you were likely having with the game. The torments for this circle of hell are only represented by statues depicting them, all while Beatrice whines at you about banging another chick. For all the cool stuff the game shows you at the beginning, there is a steep decline by the end of the game. It's sad. This could have been way better. I mean, my heart was totally set on seeing all of those souls submerged in excrement.
Wow, I've had a surprising amount of things to say about this game. Quite more than I thought I did. But wait, Kirby, you say, what about the final boss fight? Well, Space Cadets...
Now, remember when I told you to remember the giant chains you had to break while rappelling down walls? Well, plot twist, Satan taking Beatrice was just a ploy to get you, Dante, to come after her and break the chains that held Satan in hell. Dante was just being used the whole time. Yeah, it's dumb. Whatever. You get this huge boss fight with Satan who's frozen at the bottom of hell, which is actually from the poem. Satan is submerged in ice and has 3 faces and many wings. And the game adapts this imagery pretty well. I dig it. This is the final boss. His first form, the giant man-eating Satan stuck in ice, is pretty easy to say the least. Now, for his second form... Dear Lord, I have no idea what the developers were thinking when they designed this Satan. Satan's second form bursts out of the first, and he's a giant, horn and hooved creature with a titanic wang. Like, this thing is huge. If you were to stand it up and toss a sheet over it, people would think it was a circus tent. Not only that, but when he turns around, his massive beanbag bounces around underneath him. Satan's monster wiener is monstrously distracting during the game, I have to say. Like, in this boss fight, Satan doesn't need magic attacks. He just needs to beat me to death with his jumbo schlong while I'm too distracted with gawking at it. But this boss fight is really hard.
No pun intended.
It's hard because mainly I keep laughing at Satan's epic Johnson. And it's got weird physics to it as well. I mean, the physics are a little off. Like, every single time you hit Satan, his humongous salami just flops all over the place. And if you think that's funny, it gets even funnier. During the animated cutscene, it has a fur coating on it. Like somebody sat and animated a fur coating on his ding-a-ling. It's freakish. Anyone out there on the internet, just contact the developers and ask them what exactly they were thinking by designing Satan like this. Like, really, Jesus H. Christ. After the boss fight, Dante leaves hell and meets up with Beatrice at the base of the mountain of purgatory, and everything is set up for a sequel. A sequel that would never be. So Dante's Inferno isn't a bad game. It's a derivative game, yes. And it does start really well, and then that good quality and good time eventually wanes as the game concludes. But I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a bad game, and I wouldn't necessarily say that you're wasting your time if you play it. I would recommend this. It does provide some really interesting experiences, and it's the only game out there that allows you to say,
I kick ass for the Lord.
So I would like to thank my patrons Dom Ehrman and Douglas Newell. Thank you for your contributions and for helping to make this show everything that it can be. If you out there watching would like to help support the show, please check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. When you become a patron, you can get access to behind-the-scenes stuff, and you can also get videos early. Plus, every dollar that you give will go to help make this show the best that it can be. Thank you, and I'll see you next time, Space Cadets.